Do the Pittsburgh Pirates have a David Bednar problem?
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. My name is Ethan Smith. I've been doing this show now for almost 4 years, bringing you all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. I am safely back in the state of Georgia for about a week and a half, and then we'll be moving to Pennsylvania in a few weeks. So that'll be some update for you on the whereabouts of Ethan, because it seems like I am everywhere at this point. Obviously was in PNC Park over the weekend on Friday. Had a phenomenal time with you guys. Didn't really get to express that much yet, but thank you so much for coming up and seeing me and everything. That was absolutely phenomenal. Also, thank you for understanding why I didn't have a show yesterday. I was traveling all day yesterday as well. But I did get a chance to watch the game in its entirety. And, oh, man, I tweeted it out yesterday, and I said it on social media, and you guys saw it and had your comments on it, that I would never, ever think that David Bednar, of all people, would be getting booed at PNC Park. Now, don't get me wrong here, and I want to share this sentiment at the top of the show. If you're a paying customer at a sporting event, as long as it's within the bounds of the law and you're not being absolutely annoying, boo and cheer all you want. Boo and cheer who you want. We did it last year with Austin Hedges. We've done it in years past with other players. And we do it as Pittsburgh sports fans to pretty much anybody at sporting events that is not to our liking. Now, Rowdy Tellez came out after the game before David Bednar was even allowed to speak to the media. I mean, well, he was allowed to speak to the media, but before he was going to speak to the media and start talking, Rowdy Tellez says, "We don't do that here." And I like that move from a guy like Rowdy Tellez, kind of stepping into that leadership role that we expected him to step into when they signed him, being one of the older guys in the clubhouse at 29 years of age, has a track record in this league. Also has played relatively good at first base thus far, especially defensively, something that I think a lot of us have been pretty surprised by. But we all watched the game yesterday. And David Bednar, who, and we'll get into this, he has just struggled a lot to start the season, and it's just not been good stuff at all. He's had 4 save opportunities thus far, and he's blown 3 of them. That's just not good. I mean, it's okay. Even if the kid is from Mars, Pennsylvania, and from Pittsburgh, it's okay to say that David Bednar is not playing good baseball right now. If you watched the game yesterday at all, and you watched that blow up that he had in the 9th inning, when the Pirates were leading 3-1 and on the verge of their 10th win on the season, you would just see that it looks like he just doesn't have it right now. And that's really the take. I mean, that's really the analysis, is it just genuinely looks like David Bednar does not have David Bednar stuff right now. Anytime he tried to throw the curveball yesterday, it was not only missing. I could see missing in the dirt, missing away, missing in. He was missing up and in with his curveball yesterday, and missing terribly. I mean, if you were watching closely, Henry Davis and his glove were not even in the general vicinity of where these pitches were going pre-pitch. Now, the fastball also had its issues. The splitter, I think, was his best pitch yesterday, or the changeup or whatever you want to call it, I think was his best pitch yesterday. But it's really hard to say that David Bednar did anything right in that game at all. And it's really hard to say that in general about how his season started. And you see the title of this show. Do the Pirates have a David Bednar problem? Well, currently, yes, they do. It does not matter what player it is and who it is and however you want to paint the picture. David Bednar is a problem right now. Yes, I know that in the other two blown saves that he had, the Pirates did win the game, but that's not the point. I mean, yeah, I know they won, but that's not the point. The point is that you're hoping that your two-time All-Star, when you're putting him in these spots, will be the two-time All-Star that he's been. And there are a ton of factors right now to say why David Bednar is not who David Bednar usually is. The first being he barely had a spring training. Barely at all had a spring training dealing with that lat injury. He did not get ramped up, quote unquote, like everybody else did, like the Aroldis Chapmans of the world and like the Colin Holdermans and even Carmen Majinskis of the world, who, albeit started the season on the IL, but they at least had a spring. Ryan Barucki had a spring. Ryder Ryan, who they just optioned, had a spring. David Bednar did not. And one thing that I am very happy with this fan base is that a good majority of this fan base and a good majority of you that listen to this show can acknowledge that and can acknowledge that is part of the problem. There is a real possibility that David Bednar is still not fully healthy. And it has helped that this bullpen has been as good as it's been because he hasn't had to pitch in overabundance right out of the gate. But when he has pitched, it has been a problem. So if we're able to acknowledge this and say, okay, David Bednar didn't have a spring, he didn't get to ramp up, then why are we throwing him in the highest leverage situations possible in the ninth inning to save and win ball games? That just doesn't make sense to me. That is something where I don't understand that logic, because the team should also know, especially if we know, that David Bednar didn't have a spring training this year, that he might still be dealing with a nagging lat injury. So why not throw him out there in the 7th or the 8th inning and let him ramp up in those spots? Now, yesterday, don't get me wrong, if he would have pitched in the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning and pitched like that, he would have given up runs. I just think if he would have given those runs up in the 7th inning, the Pirates still have a chance to win. I think they were just in complete shock mode, and that's why they couldn't come back and win that game yesterday. But when you also consider that David Bednar just doesn't have it right now, but you also, like I've said on this show a million times, have a top 10 bullpen unit in baseball that's only probably going to get better now that Colin Holderman is likely coming back tomorrow with Ryder Ryan getting optioned, then folks, David Bednar doesn't have to pitch all that much. And not only pitch all that much, but he doesn't have to pitch in high leverage situations. We've seen Aroldis Chapman come into games so far this year and pump 100 miles per hour at a very ripe age and still look like Aroldis Chapman. We've seen Ryder Ryan, again, who got optioned, look good. We've seen a lot of these bullpen arms. Roanzi has even looked pretty good. Luis Ortiz has looked pretty good. The bullpen as a whole is still a very solid, solidified unit on this roster. David Bednar is supposed to be a part of that. He just isn't right now. Now, do I think that this is going to be something that we're going to see all season? Probably not. I think David Bednar is just too talented of a closer, and we've seen him come out of these spots before. Now, you could also make the argument that he was dealing with stuff at the end of the year last year, and he surrenders a lot of runners on base and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but the dude is still a two-time All-Star. He still has stuff. Yeah, he could be for PA all he wants, but he's still a very talented relief pitcher in this league who has helped this team win games countless times. And he can continue to do that. Now, does David Bednar need an IL stint? Maybe. maybe throw him on the 10 or the 15 day. Maybe that's the direct move they make when Majinski comes back, who he should be coming back pretty soon because his rehab just got moved up to AAA Indianapolis. Maybe that's what you have to do with Bednar. But it's very, very big that Aroldis Chapman is here because you could put Aroldis Chapman in that closer role right now if you have to. You can put Colin Holderman in that closer role if you have to. The bullpen is very interchangeable in the roles that it has. Bednar is supposed to be the closer. And right now, that job just isn't being done. So do the Pirates have a David Bednar problem right now? Yes, they do. And it is perfectly okay to criticize and acknowledge it, even though the kid is from Pittsburgh. We had no problem doing that with Kenny Pickett. Do it with Bednar. It is perfectly okay to criticize it. He's not playing good. He's not filling the role that he's supposed to fill as a part of the 26-man MLB roster. And he'll get out of it. He'll definitely get out of it. It's something that David Bednar has done countless times in his career when he's in ruts. He'll get out of it. But the Pirates also need to take the necessary steps to win ball games to put him in a different role right now. And that role should not be the closer if this is what he's going to be doing at this current moment. You have other guys that could fill that role if you need it. And right now, David Bednar is a problem. They lucked out of winning those other games too. They could easily have 5 or 6 losses. Yeah, they're 9-3. They're still playing good baseball. But they could be 10-2 if it wasn't for that yesterday. And those are the kind of losses that you'll look back on in June or July and say, man, I really wish we didn't lose that one. Or in September. So David Bednar, he'll figure it out. His stuff it's just not there right now. But once he gets healthier, once he gets ramped up, I think he'll be fine. Because quite literally, he's having his spring training in front of our eyes. The team should acknowledge that, though. The team should acknowledge that he's not 100% yet. Stop putting him in those big situations. I think that's really where that conversation can stop. One thing, though, that has been very, very nice to see to start this season is that the starting pitching has had some success thus far. What has gone right and how have the outside acquisitions helped kind of make this rotation a little bit better than we expected? We'll talk about that in just a moment. But before we do, we're going to talk about Prize Picks. Folks, download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100 because Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. You can also get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during NBA's postseason. The playoffs begin April 20th with the play-in round April 16th, 17th, and 19th. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. And of course, you can pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. And folks, also, don't forget to make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast here in the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. My name is Ethan Smith. Thank you, as always, for tuning into the show, as you always do every Monday through Friday. Cannot wait to be a PA native and just have this show cranking out. It's going to be wonderful. And one thing that's been wonderful so far has been the success that we've seen from the starting rotation so far. It's been a unit that, as many of you remember, we talked about it all offseason, that this rotation needed help. It was a unit that just straight up needed help. Mitch Keller was kind of just like the Will Smith meme, looking around like, all right, I guess there's nobody here. And it didn't help then that Johan Oviedo, of course, is out for this year with Tommy John. But they did go out and they made some moves. They obviously bring in Martin Perez. They bring in Marco Gonzalez. And then they call up Jared Jones right away. They say, we don't even want you going to AAA. And so far, we've seen some very good things from this rotation. Keller finally had his first truly good start of the year in his last start against Detroit on Monday. Just pitched very well. Was finally getting back to some of the stuff that Mitch Keller does well. Cut back the cutter a little bit. And it was just nice to see him after those first two starts where he just didn't really have it, to come back out and be the Mitch Keller that we saw last year, become an all-star and be the opening day starter. So Mitch is going to be, I think, the conductor of this train. He's going to be the conductor of the starting rotation train. But right now, he's not even close to being the best pitcher right now on this roster. Not even close starting rotation-wise. And right now, it's hard to make an argument that it's not Martin Perez. I mean, Perez yesterday, a tough no decision for him yesterday. Goes 8 innings. Had probably stated that he could go the 9th, but in those 8 innings, man, 7 strikeouts, induced, I believe, he induced quite a good bit of ground balls. Yeah, he had 11 ground outs to 4 flyouts, so 15 of his outs didn't even really require much from his defense. Obviously had good defense behind him. Also had just a phenomenal day in terms of throwing strikes. For Perez, 70 pitches or 100 pitches, 70 strikes on the day. And he has a 1.89 ERA right now, folks. He has just been electric on the mound. And it's nice to see. It's a signing that I wanted from the moment the offseason started, as soon as I found out he was a free agent, because he has a track record of being a very strong starting pitcher. A career ERA of 4.40, 1,459 innings of work. And right now, I mean, he's had 3 starts, 19 innings in those starts, 15 strikeouts, and a 1.21 whip. The 15 strikeouts is interesting, too, because you're talking about a guy that doesn't even really strike out hitters at a high clip. He's doing so right now. And then you look at some of these other things, too. I mean, an opponent's batting average of 247, very good. Again, a 1.21 whip, which would be his lowest since 2022. 247 batting average, by the way, right around that 241 opponent's batting average that he gave up in that strong 2022 season. And he's also just done really well throwing strikes. He's on pace to have his highest strike thrown percentage that he's ever had in his career at 67%. He's always been around 64, 65, and it's still very early. But Perez has done phenomenal. He's done really good. And then you look at Marco Gonzalez even, who's had a very good run of things so far. Marco Gonzalez has looked good. He was another offseason acquisition. In his last start, 6 innings pitched against a strong Orioles lineup. 2 earned runs, 4 strikeouts. He's sitting at a 2.45 ERA right now. He's maybe getting back to his 2022 form. And the question with Marco Gonzalez was never, is Marco Gonzalez a good pitcher? Career 4.12 ERA, very Pittsburgh-esque. One of the more consistent pitchers in baseball before his injury last year. The injury is the concern. Does that nerve damage flare up at all? Does it come back? Does it, end up being an issue? So far, it hasn't. He's been healthy. 11 innings pitched through 2 starts, a 1 whip, right on the nose, 6 strikeouts. He's been a very good anchor. Jared Jones, the aforementioned Jared Jones, who of course got the start on Friday on opening day. Folks, he's been legit. 3.86 ERA through his first 2 starts, striking out guys at ease at 11 and 2/3 innings with 17 strikeouts. He's given up the home run ball a little bit, but that's fine. I think he's looked phenomenal so far at 22 years of age. I mean, you look at his first 2 starts, 5 and 2/3 against Miami, who, God. And then 6 innings against, a Baltimore lineup that is strong. That is a strong Baltimore lineup. And he just went out there and said, okay, the only runs I'm giving up are 2 solo shots. After he gave those up, he settled in. He started looking like the Jared Jones of spring training. If he can cut those home run balls out, I think he'll be fine. But you're also looking at 17 strikeouts through your first 2 starts. And he'll pitch tomorrow against the Philadelphia Phillies. He's going to be just fine. So this starting rotation so far has actually been quite good. It's been a unit that's been pretty decent. I mean, even, God forbid, mentioning Bailey Falter, he had a pretty good start on Saturday. 6 innings pitched, only gave up 1 hit against that Orioles lineup. Now, this is not me defending Bailey Falter in any right at all, but if he comes out and does that again, I don't think you're mad. I mean, I know we don't like Bailey Falter, but I don't think you're mad about it. And then you have Quinn Priester in the wings. You have Paul Skeens in the wings. This starting rotation has the potential to only get better as this season moves on. And that is a very good thing. That is a very good thing. And there's nothing wrong with saying that the starting rotation has been good so far. Obviously, we're only 12 games in. They're going to face another strong team in the Philadelphia Phillies, a strong offense. You're going to see 4 games against that team. Schedule doesn't get any easier with playing all 30 teams now. They have to do it. But the starting rotation this far has looked good. It's been a trend. And we're going to talk about some other trends, including one that I think is very fun, the Connor Joe effect. We're going to talk about those in the final segment of today's show of Locked On Pirates. But before we talk about that, folks, let's talk about eBay Motors. Folks, eBay Motors has millions of parts for your MVP, and you can win every time with parts that fit your ride because passion, drive, and patience are the formula for winning championships and also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride at eBay Motors. So it's always interesting that when a season starts, and it's very early, don't get me wrong, very early. Pirates are 9-3. They've gotten off to this fun start. But it's always fun to look at the trends that we see from these teams thus far. And one that we've already seen from the Pittsburgh Pirates has been the Connor Joe effect. The Pittsburgh Pirates, when Connor Joe is in the starting lineup, are 9-0. When he is not in the starting lineup, the Pittsburgh Pirates are 0-3. Now, is that just a coinkydink? Is that coincidence? Maybe. But it's also hard to argue that when a guy like Connor Joe is currently sitting at a 985 OPS, he has 324 average, 1 homer, 9 RBIs. He's been an efficient player for this team. If you go back to the opening series against Miami, He was the leadoff hitter in all of those games. He was doing very well. When you look at some of the stuff that he's done, I mean, even over the last 7 days, he's had 14 at-bats, 1 home run, 4 RBIs. He's getting on base via the free pass. He's walked more than he struck out. And he's helping the team win games. And I applaud Ben Cherington for bringing him back into the organization because he's a very good player. He just is. He's played in 10 games as far in the 9 that he started, they're undefeated. And not only that, he's just played very well. And when you look at more trends, Brian Reynolds obviously picking it up a little bit now, up to a 812 OPS. Struck out a little bit, but he's walking a good bit as well, has 2 home runs. Edward Olivares has had quite the start to the season, leading the team in home runs with 3 on the year. Again, I talked about Edward Olivares all offseason with his expected home run rate and that power. Really, all he needed to do was just bring the launch angle along and he'd be just fine. He's done that so far, leading the team. You look at some of the other team leaders, Connor Joe currently leads with the best batting average at 324. Olivares with 3 homers leading the team. Reynolds leading the team in RBIs with 10. Connor Joe, unsurprisingly, leading in on-base percentage at 444. And Ke'Bryan Hayes leading in hits. Then you look at pitching right now, and I mean, right now, obviously, I mentioned Martin Perez leading in ERA. Keller and Jones leading in strikeouts, but Jones will likely pass him on Thursday. Chapman currently has 4 holds on the year so far, so he's done very well. Something that I also wanted to mention, and I know with relievers it's a little tougher to bring this up, but the Pirates right now currently have 6 players with a K per 9 above 10 and 7 players with a K per 9 above 9. Those being Chapman, Barucki, Jones, Bednar, Stratton, Ryan, and Keller. That is something. And you also look at the wars that we've seen. I mean, Martin Perez is already up to a 0.8 war, Gonzalez 0.5, Ortiz 0.5, Jose Hernandez 0.4. So they're already getting good wins above replacement numbers. Triolo currently leads in that market for the Pirates at 0.6. But the Pirates are doing okay in that market outside of, some of these other guys that have not had that much success. But then you also look at, I mean, Joey Bart coming in and, maybe the change of pace was good for him. You look at a Ke'Bryan Hayes, who has brought the bat from last year over that he had in the second half. These are the trends that you want to keep looking at, folks, is who's hitting the baseball well, who continues to get on base, who continues to do things right. And those are the things that are going to keep this hot start going and the things that are going to make me want to come on this show and talk about the Pirates positively every single day. Folks, thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. Follow me on Twitter right there at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. This show is free and available to you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday on YouTube and your audio platforms. Folks, have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday afternoon. We'll be back tomorrow morning to discuss the Philadelphia Phillies series and some other things that I have on my thoughts and in my brain about this team. But until then, folks, I'll see you on the flip side.